Got his glass of water. So I'm going to call on the president of Saskatchewan Conference, Gail Wensley, to introduce our moderator. Gail?
Thank you, John. Wow, this is such a big church. It isn't even that big, is it? Just to say the two little churches that I serve would fit on this half together, if you put them together. So my name is Gail Wensley. I'm your president of the Saskatchewan Conference, and it has been my privilege and great delight to be the chauffeur for your moderator. And I picked him up yesterday morning. We traveled all the way and had a good visit down all the way to Fort Capel. We then went on our official business, and I've heard now some stories 3 times, which is okay. I told him at supper time on the 3rd time round, I said, now I can start locking you out, that's okay. But it has been my delight to get to know Gary a little bit better, and he's a very personable and approachable fellow, and I would encourage you to ask questions and talk to him later, and when he gets tired, he'll just tap me on the shoulder and I'll whisk him out the back door, because that's my job this week. So I present to you your moderator, Gary Patterson.
Testing. Is it working? It is. Good. Friends, it gives me great pleasure to be with you this evening, to join together in this time of fellowship and conversation. I've been in Saskatchewan Conference now since last Friday night, and there have been a couple of days of rain, which I think you're putting on just to make me, a West Coaster, feel right at home. However, I've talked to family back in Vancouver, and they say they're having endless sunshine. So I'm thinking somehow the weather gods have become mixed up. But I've had opportunity to be in parades, to see inner city ministries, to speak at another presbytery meeting, heading off to La Ronge tomorrow with the DLMs this morning. It feels like such a warm welcome, and I am delighted to be with you. Clearly, one of the great perks or privileges of being moderator is that you get to travel a country and meet wonderful, wonderful people who are faithful, often struggling, wondering what the future holds, but putting their shoulder right to the wheel, doing presbytery business or creating potlucks that are exotic and wonderful. And, well, there's something actually called General Council spread, and the moderators all put on poundage. And I told a couple of people that former moderator Marion Party said at the end of her 3 years, the only thing she fit were her shoes. And so I enjoyed tonight's feast enormously. I'm here to share with you some thoughts about our church, to talk more in detail about the comprehensive review, perhaps talk a little bit about Greenbelt. But I want to start with a children's story, recognizing that we are all children at heart, and sometimes we hear parables more deeply than we do information in lecture form. We had a good model some 2,000 years ago. It seemed to have stuck, and the stories shared then are still with us. And so it is my delight to share with you a children's story called Scary Squirrel, which was presented to me very shortly after becoming moderator with this inscription: Gary, may this book enable pondering, laughter, and direction. And I thought there's perhaps nothing more that our church needs than pondering and laughter and direction. And if you've heard this before, then truly become a child at heart. Any of you who've raised your kids, or I look out and you who have grandchildren, know that when a book is loved, it should be read every night. And in fact, it needs then eventually to be word perfect once a young person begins to understand the art of reading. So here we are. Scaredy Squirrel. And you'll have to swim to the back. You see, if you've just done the right thing and come to the front row of the church, instead of coming early so you can get the back view, you have a great view of the book. If you want to move, oh, it's on the camera. Oh, okay. Scaredy Squirrel never leaves his nut tree. He'd rather stay in his safe and familiar tree than risk venturing out into the unknown. The unknown can be a scary place for a squirrel. A few things that Scaredy Squirrel, I just need to catch this, okay? It is scared of. Tarantulas, poison ivy, green marshes, killer bees, germs, and of course, sharks. So he's perfectly happy to stay, there we are, right where he is. Advantages of never leaving the nut tree. Great view, plenty of nuts, safe place, no tarantulas, poison ivy, green marshes, killer bees, germs, or sharks. Disadvantages of never leaving the nut tree. Same old view, same old nuts, same old place. In Scaredy Squirrel's nut tree, every day is the same. Everything is predictable. All is under control. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just a slightly different view from a different branch of the tree. Scaredy Squirrel's daily routine. 6:45, wake up. 7 o'clock, eat a nut. 7:15, look at you. 12 o'clock, eat a nut. 12:30, look at you. 5 o'clock, eat a nut. 5:30, look at you. 8 o'clock, go to sleep. But let's say, just for example, that something unexpected did happen. Well, you can rest assured that our Scaredy Squirrel is prepared. Do remember this is a parable, right? You might recognize some familiar institution in this, but I won't say anymore. A few items in Scaredy Squirrel's emergency kit: parachute, bug spray, mask and rubber gloves, hard hat, antibacterial soap, calamine lotion, net, band-aid, and of course, sardines. You wonder what to do in case of an emergency according to Scaredy Squirrel. Step 1, panic. Step 2, run. Step 3, get kit. Step 4, put on kit. Step 5, consult exit plan. Step 6, exit tree only if there is absolutely definitely nothing else that can be done. Exit plan. Number 1, when you're jumping out the top, note to self, watch out for green Martians and killer bees in the sky. Exit 2, from the other side, still with a parachute, note to self, do not land in a river. If unavoidable, use sardines to distract sharks. Exit 3, note to self, moving down, look out for poison ivy and for tarantulas roaming around upon the ground. Exit 4, note to self, keep in mind the germs are everywhere. And remember, if all else fails, playing dead is always a good option. With his emergency kit in hand, Scaredy Squirrel watches day after day. He watches until one day, on Thursday, at 9:37, OMG! A killer bee appears. Scaredy Squirrel jumps in panic, knocking his emergency kit out of the tree. This was not part of the plan. Scaredy Squirrel jumps to catch his kit. He quickly regrets this idea. The parachute is inside the kit. But something incredible happens. He starts flying. Scaredy Squirrel is no ordinary squirrel. He is a flying squirrel. Scaredy Squirrel forgets all about the killer bee, not to mention the tarantulas, poison ivy, green Martians, germs, and sharks. He feels overjoyed. He feels adventurous, carefree, alive, until he lands in a bush. At which point, he plays dead. 30 minutes later, still playing dead. 1 hour later, dead. 2 hours later, dead. Until finally, Scary Squirrel realizes that nothing horrible is happening in the unknown today. So he returns to his nut tree. All this excitement has inspired Scary Squirrel to make drastic changes in his life. His new and improved daily routine: 6:45 wake up, 7 o'clock eat a nut, 7:15 look at view, 9:37 leap into the unknown. Play dead. I love that line. Oh, that's our United Church. Sorry. I'm not supposed to drive the point home. 11:40, return home. 12 o'clock, eat a nut, 12:30 look at you. 5 o'clock, eat a nut, 5:30 look at you, 8 o'clock go to bed. It's not huge, you know. It's just 2 hours of the unknown. And P.S. as for the emergency kit, well, he's in no hurry to retrieve it because it is surrounded by poison ivy. Scary Squirrel. The unknown is a scary, frightening place. You probably know that through lived experience. I want to throw a few statistics your way. We peaked in membership in 1964, and we are half the size now that we were then. This last census period, baptism rates dropped by 80%. Since the mid-60s, we have closed 2,200 churches. And in fact, last year, 2011, we closed 65. In my home conference province of British Columbia, the 10 presbytery ministers from presbyteries gathered together, and they calculated that at least 5 churches will close in each presbytery. That means in the next 5 years, BC will lose 50 congregations just on its own. The same reality is happening all across the country. We are shrinking. I could tell you about financial challenges. I'm sure that you know them and experience them deeply within your own home church. I had the responsibility, shared with all kinds of others at General Council, to cut $5 million out of our budget last May. And we've been told that probably in 2 years another $5 million needs to come, and probably 2 to 3 years after that, another $5 million. The unknown is a very scary place. An interesting set of statistics. We know that there has been a move from rural setting into urban realities. That's not news here in Saskatchewan at all. But did you know that approximately 70% of all Canadians live in the 33 largest cities of our country, which means cities of 100,000 or more? 1/3 of our people live in Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto. And just as an aside, I'm from Vancouver, and I just want you to think about the mayor of Toronto, just saying. And I read in the paper, of course, the mayor of Montreal has been found, well, we won't go there. But our mayor made his money selling organic fruit juice that he calls Happy Planet. He always rides a bicycle, even when he's topped up and going to some formal meeting. We love Gregor. Just saying, that's just a little coastal pride in terms of mayor stuff. The interesting counter statistic is that 70% of our United Churches are to be found located in towns that are under 30,000. 58% of our membership are in towns under 30,000. So you can see the unknown is a scary place. We are a changing country in terms of demographics and of color. In the last 10 years, according to the census, 1,162,900 something people arrived in this country born elsewhere. 45% of the population in the Greater Toronto area were born in another country. My children the high school in the eastern side of Vancouver, we were told by the vice principal 67 different languages are spoken on the home front. We are a church committed to intercultural ministries, but we have only to take a look at ourselves and ask questions about the diversity of our color, ethnicity, racial background. We are challenged to discover how we might truly become a welcoming community. It is a challenge. We might also then want to look at, well, what's another statistic I can pull out? Age of ministries. We have a group in our church called BAM, Below Average Ministers. It's a funny kind of title, but it actually refers to those ministers who are below the average age. If you are under 57, you qualify. There are more ministers living who are presently retired than who are actively serving. If you are in my age category, I believe 1,600 of us will be eligible for retirement in the next 10 years. So we are facing all kinds of scary realities. The interesting news for me, however, is that it is not our fault. We are not at all unique in experiencing this dilemma. Every single denomination in North America is experiencing precisely the same reality. It's easily seen in other liberal Protestant mainline denominations like Presbyterians, Anglicans, Lutherans. They're doing exactly the same as we are, if not perhaps a bit worse. The Catholic tradition is maintaining numbers, but only because of immigration, and are having a very difficult time discovering local priests and sisters. And so many parishes are not being served or being served by priests who are coming from other countries. And even the evangelicals, who anecdotally seem to be doing well there on the corner of town as the Alliance of the Missionary, well, if you look at it in a larger picture, since the year 2000, they have been recording a decline in numbers. And so many people are figuring they're about 20 years behind us. Southern Baptists, the largest Protestant denomination in North America, have been cutting staff over the last several years because of the decline in numbers and in givings. This is not to crow about the dilemma of our neighbors and our sisters and brothers in the faith, but it is to say the shrinkage that we are experiencing is not because we've done something wrong. It is the fact that the context has completely changed. And what we did in the past was faithful and good and solid ministry, and was exactly what the times required. And now the times have changed. And we're not sure what the times are asking of us. We do know that it will be different. And part of what we are challenged to do now is to figure out a way to live into that new challenge in a, what's the technical term, a non-anxious presence. Which sometimes I attain at 2 a.m. I wake up saying, oh my God, help. And if you happen to turn and open your Bible at 2 a.m., you're liable to land in a passage that starts off with, be not afraid. It seems to be one of the major themes of Scripture, whether it be an angel who startles and says to a Mary or just about anybody else, don't be afraid. Or whether it is a prophet like Isaiah said, when you go through the rivers, you shall not drown, and the fires, they shall not consume you. Fear not, for I am with you. Or you might hear words from Jesus that say, trust me, follow me, be comforted. And he will say, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, let them not be afraid. We are often a people who are ruled by fear, and we will therefore never leave our nut tree, no matter what the unknown suggests. Scripture says, be not afraid, for you are beloved by God, and you are a flying squirrel, and you are invited to just launch out into the unknown and trust. Wonderful little poem written by Denise Levertov. She says, as swimmers dare to lie, face to sky, and water bears them. Do you remember that moment when you were learning to swim, or when you were trying to teach your child to swim, and the hand was under the back, And the voice said, just trust me. I'm going to take the hand away. And you think, no, you're not. I will sink and drown. But you discovered that as swimmers dare to lie face the sky, then water will bear them. As hawks rest upon air, and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all surrounding grace. Flying squirrel, free fall, and floating. I don't often quote St. Augustine. He and I have many theological differences. But he was a man of profundity and wisdom, and he said, without God, we cannot. Without us, God will not. People ask me why, in the face of these statistics, I still have hope. It's because of God. It is because of the Spirit that will invigorate, will be with us, and from whom nothing in all creation, not even the closure of your congregation, can separate you. In the prophet Isaiah, God speaks and says, behold, I am doing a new thing. Do you not see it? Waters will flow in the desert, and there shall be green sprouts once again. Just before that, the prophet says, listen, do you not remember those days when the chariots were chasing you and the waters came over them, and I took care of everything and you were free? And I think, yes, that's the kind of God I need right about now. And the word says, remember that. And then the word says, but do not remember the former things. I think, excuse me, a little whiplash here. You just told me the great things. God is worried that when we remember the great things of the past, we will start to become caught in a nostalgia and a sentimentality that says, oh, the good old days, oh, the good old days, which were good, and they were wonderful. We're being invited to say, remember them, but then don't remember them, and trust that God will do a new thing. In fact, is doing a new thing. I read the definition of faith, which just tickled my fancy. Saying faith is the call to remember what God did in the past, trusting that God will do it in the future, even though from your point of view God seems to be doing squat right now. I think we're in that stage, right here, thinking, where is it? I'm watching, I'm ready to discern, I'm not seeing the new thing. But what I want to share with you is that, in fact, I think it's happening. Some new sprouts and new shoots, new possibilities are emerging. And why should that surprise us? I mean, truly, we are people rooted in the story of crucifixion and resurrection. You will not get the new until the old dies. And it feels incredibly difficult to be a moderator who goes around and says, trust in the resurrection, but you're dying right now. It's not a popular message, and I don't really believe we're going to die completely, though many of us will, in terms of congregational life. We can pretend. We think if we can just get the young, new minister who's, the routine, speaks well, loves seniors, enjoys kids, has 75 hours, but takes care of herself by only working for all of that, and add a praise band or two. It's not going to happen. We're going to go through rough times. We will become leaner. We will probably need to understand what it means to join together. God forbid. Amalgamation is sort of a love-hated word. But how do we come together to be community, to enable the new thing to be born, or to discover where it is already happening so we can go out beyond our buildings and what we think of as our norms to embrace this new thing. I was at a meeting of the Canadian Council of Churches. They pulled together a number of church leaders. We were all whinging away about the state of the church. The Presbyterians, they wear furs. The Lutherans, they didn't even show up. And I was there. The primate of the Anglican Church sent regrets saying, we just received our year-end financial accounts and we declared crisis. And he was so busy trying to deal with the crisis he couldn't come to the meeting. I thought, okay, I knew this. And then the Mennonites came and I thought, okay, I'm sure they're doing really well, except the head of the Mennonite conference in Ontario, Willard Metzer, said, oh, that's us. We're in the midst of doing a comprehensive review. And then the Reformed said, we're actually presenting ours to our General Assembly in June. And then the General of the Salvation Army got up and I thought, okay. He said, that's exactly true for us. Nobody's showing up. The times have changed. They really have changed. Willard then said, an image that has been helpful for me is to imagine the church as a boat. And I suspect he must have maritime roots, because he began to talk about the fog. The fog that can sometimes be so thick you don't know where you're going, but you still have to keep rowing. You're trying to hear where the lighthouse sounds are coming from so you don't hit the rocks. You don't really know where you're going, but you got to keep moving. You do your best to see where are the tides and the currents and discern. And then all of a sudden, the fog opens up. And you think, that's the way to do church. You quickly start rolling away. And then the fog closes in. You think, now you've got to steer by faith again. Is it to the left? Is it to the right? Straight? What do you think? Oh, I don't know. Keep right. It parts again. And, got it? It parts again and you redirect. And that's what's happening for the church. I put that in a blog posting. Oh, this is my chance to sort of plug the blog. If you're interested, it's there. Several people wrote back and said, great image. You think of it as a rowboat, but I think of it as a canoe. It needs to be nimble, more flexible. Somebody else wrote it and said, I'd rather have a cruiser. I thought, well, good luck. That's not the church I know. Somebody else said, actually, we'd be jumped out of the boat and we're swimming for our lives. Had another jokester said, well, we crash landed, we hit those rocks, and we're crawling on the land trying to figure out what to do. We don't know. We simply don't know. I was at a gathering of executive secretaries, and we were having this conversation, and Will Cunder, who is the exec secretary of Manitou, Northern Ontario, said, yes, it's all so true. Isn't this an incredibly exciting time to be church? And the rest of us said, help, that doesn't really compute for us. And he said, well, it's like we have an opportunity to be free of the baggage and all the old stuff. We have a chance to reinvent the church. Like if you actually got together with 5 other committed Christians and said, if we had to put a church together, what would it look like? And I'm not at all sure if it would look like what we got. I don't know what it will look like. But it will be different. He said, what we're really entering into is the position or the situation described in the book of Acts, when in fact early Christians had a fire in their belly, and they were excited about the good news that they had experienced and wanted to tell other people about that. There were only a handful of them. I mean, you're never sure whether it was the big 12 or the 72 that Jesus sent out or the 120 that were supposed to be there at Pentecost or Peter preaching the sermon that created the first mega church at Pentecost with 3,000 believers, a story that has intimidated every other preacher after that. But they went out. And, of course, they weren't well known and they weren't particularly legal. And so there were no church buildings for at least 100, maybe 200 years. People met in houses. People met in the equivalent, I'm sure, of schoolrooms. When things were tough, you met in catacombs, and you hid. And somehow, the passion was big enough, and zealous enough, and exciting enough, that the people started to spark and say, tell me more, tell me more. And the church grew. I wonder what it would look like for us now. I don't know. I was talking to the Methodist Bishop of Ghana. One little exciting thing that we did was to create a membership partnership with the Ghanaian Church of Canada, the Methodist Ghanaian Church. There are 6 congregations in Canada, 20 in the States. They have the fire in the belly. You may not be totally comfortable with all of their theology. There's much they can learn from us, but there's much we can learn from them. I was talking to the bishop. He has his doctorate and teaches in the seminary, Trinity Seminary in Accra, Ghana. I said, so how many theological students do you have? He said, well, that's a hard question. We have 800 regular students in our day program studying for ministry. But we have a lot of people who are already doing ministry or working because they can't afford to stop working to feed family. So they come to night school. And then there are some that come from modules. They're able to give out 2 weeks for training. When you put all that together, we're talking a couple of thousand. I said, well, that's for all of Africa? He said, well, no, that's for Ghana. We allow a few Nigerians and some folk from Sierra Leone in. And I'm thinking, oh, we have much to learn. They have a little motto, 3 in 13. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, well, in the year 2013, every single member of every single congregation has been challenged to go out and have an intense faith conversation with 3 people. 3 people who are not part of the church. You're not there to try and hook them, fish them, grab them into the pew, though if that happens, great. But you are challenged to share your faith. I wonder what would happen if we said, that's a challenge for us in the United Church. It's not bones in pews. That would be nice. But that you go because, in fact, you can hardly stop talking about this thing, this faith, this Christ, this love, that just changes your life. We sometimes describe ourselves as the welcoming church, and hallelujah. But welcoming church suggests that we're waiting for them to come to us. And if they come through the door at 10:25 on Sunday morning, then they will be welcomed. Unfortunately, as an aside, if they came at 10:40, they would be stared at. Right? Oh. Just as an aside, with the DL said, if you come late to our church, the entire congregation turns around and looks at you. And he goes, not in a nasty way, but in a way that you know you transgressed ever so slightly. He said, I have friends that are in AA meetings. If you come 20 minutes late, the entire group bursts into applause because they're so glad you made it. What would it be like if we are just so glad? Or what would it be like if instead of just being welcoming, we invited? It means that you have to go out into the world to find out where people are, what the real questions are, and then listen, and then maybe invite. Not necessarily into Sunday morning, but for a cup of tea where you listen and have an intense conversation about God or Spirit or Creator or higher power, and that you have an openness to the different names that all of us use for the holy and for the mystery. It means going out. It means going out where the people are. I know one minister who says every Wednesday morning, and he publicizes this, and he makes sure the media knows about it, he hangs out at the Starbucks. It would be Tim Hortons or Second Cup. I don't know what your equivalent is here. I think Tim Hortons has moved in, but Starbucks, coming from the West, you will see it very soon. It's better. But that's where people hang out. Same minister also publicizes that he will show up to the local pub one night a month, and they will talk theology. It's called Theology on Tap. The same minister said, you know, Christianity has an incredible vision about sexuality. In the public mind, it's usually the finger shaking saying, no, you're bad. And he said, actually, that's not the vision. But people are not going to come and listen. So he said, how might I be able to have a conversation? He decided to preach on 50 Shades of Grey, which is the bestseller of the last 2 years. My daughter said, Dad, don't you ever do that. It's soft pornography, and soft is being kind. The church was filled to overflowing, and I gathered that there was something like 300, 400, 500 hits and sermon reading by the end of that Sunday. People listened because there was an engagement with the culture, with the stuff they were reading, and the issues they were wrestling with. Part of our challenge is to get out there where the people are. Now I know that's easy to say, great for the moderator to stand up and shout, but I do know that it's happening. Here and there, things are happening. And I'm here to challenge each one of you and every congregation to explore the possibilities. You talk to business people, and they say of 10 product launches, only one will take off and make a bit of money. And for every product launch, you need to have 10 experiments, which means you essentially have 99 failures for every successful venture. I want us to be bold failures. They say that a business manager will come to a local company and say, please show me the list of your failures. Because if you're not failing, you're not taking a risk. You haven't flown out of the nut tree. Just try it. I was talking to one of the DLMs doing a very interesting experimental ministry in Montreal. He said, we failed. We're going to close up next year. But boy, have we learned a lot. And we'll do it differently next time. And I want that same vision for us. Me, I know myself well enough. I like Lucy in the Peanuts cartoons. I want to go from up to upper. And I like to learn from my successes, thank you very much, not my failures. But the reality of life is that failures are needed. If you don't risk, you don't try, you don't experiment, it ain't gonna happen. So, a practical thing. The most exciting and important thing that our United Church did at the last General Council was not what you read in the media, the stance we took on the issues of Israel and Palestine, nor even the position that we took on the Northern Pipeway and Enbridge, for which we got much grief in the press. The most important thing, I believe, was that we mandated the formation of the Comprehensive Review Task Group. A small gathering of 7 to 8 people, ordinary folk from across the church, couple young, couple old, halfway, one DLN, some ordained, and they have been invited and asked by the church to come back with a report, and they have been told everything is on the table. Transform our structures. Help the church work for whatever the new thing is. Do not choke us with process. We are a people who process forever. It is a good thing, but right now it is an overdone strength. And I'm a guy in Toronto who's been part of this process all the way. We need more creativity. The report, hopefully, will bring some of that in. At the same time, the report is also going to need to address our need to rejuvenate, to discover spirit, to recapture that fire in the belly, whatever it means for a United Church person to be evangelical. I mean, you use that word and people look at me with squinty eyes, thinking, did we allow a right-winger into our midst? And I'm saying, do not let particular branches of the Christian family hold particular words as if they own them. They don't, and you define the lays, they don't own evangelical. We used to describe ourselves as evangelical, meaning there's some good news that we would like to share. We even had a major portfolio of Toronto that was called Evangelism and Social Action, knowing that one way of being evangelical is to live the gospel and not even use words. That's just a lift from St. Francis. We need to be, and dare I say it, it's one of the great sins, but proud of being United Church. One of the reasons I allowed my name to stand as a possible nominee for moderator is that I think that our denomination has a particular gift, a charism, an embodiment of gospel that is a gift for the world and a gift for the larger embrace of Christendom. You could name such things as our struggle with inclusivity, ordaining women in the 30s, allowing gay people and lesbian people to be included part of the body. Our being one of the first denominations to name the atrocities that we ourselves perpetrated in residential school. Our struggle to be intercultural, even though we're just taking baby steps. We know we need to do something, and more needs to be done. We have that inclusivity. We have a social gospel tradition that says a huge amount of what it means to be people of faith is to be out in the world doing the work of peace and justice and compassion. We're also a people who say you really do have to think. You really have to wrestle with your faith. You do not park your mind at the door of the church when you walk in. We are one of those groups of Christians who say we need to be in dialogue with science, and we need to be in correspondence and conversation with our culture. It is a gift that we offer, and I don't want it to disappear. I really don't. I think it's too precious. I don't know what it's going to look like. It is not going to look like what we have now. So somewhere we need to celebrate the gift we've been. We need to open ourselves up for some grief and some sense of loss, and not minimize that, and then find hope. Not Pollyanna optimism, like things will always be better, but a hope that is rooted in God. A hope that is rooted in God. It does not have to be the wild Pentecost with fire and flame and people dancing. It can be the quiet Pentecost that came in John's Gospel. Remember, it was Christmas night, Easter night, and the disciples, though they had heard from the women that the Lord had risen, they didn't believe, and they were hiding behind locked doors. And Jesus suddenly appeared, and he simply breathed upon them. And they were filled with the Holy Spirit. I sometimes think when I'm invited to give a talk like this, I should say almost nothing. I should just go and do mouth to mouth. You'd remember it, wouldn't you? And the back row just starts to move really fast before he gets there. He needs mouthwash. Oh! But that image of sharing the bread. Just one more little add-on to that image. I love the fact that breath, spirit, included in our language, spirit, just spirit. And have you ever thought of the notion of conspiracy? With the Spirit. If you are truly with the Spirit, you're part of a holy conspiracy. A holy conspiracy. Because the challenge for any church is to preserve the wisdom and the tradition. So we're called to be conservative, to be in dialogue with the old stories. And we are simultaneously called to be revolutionary, to be transformative, reformational, Protestant. And sometimes we find the right balance. Sometimes the times themselves call for different emphases. Right now, we've settled a little too much over here. We need a little bit more of the conspiracy without abandoning the wisdom, the story, and all of the strong, but to see it shaped in a new way. Let me finish with one more. No? There. It's a tricky. One more parable. This is written by Greg Smith Young, delightful minister, youngish, bam, below average, and 8. Illawarra Bethany congregations in Waterloo Presbyterian in Southern Ontario. It's called The Parable of the Pickup. I tried to use this in Vancouver. It's a pickup truck, by the way. You caught it immediately, you in the back there. Half tons. In Vancouver, you have absolutely no need for a pickup truck of any sort. The only reason you never use it is when we win a hockey game, and then you drive down Burrard, Ross, and Denman, right near where I live. It doesn't happen very often, so you park your pickup truck. But it works particularly in Saskatchewan. The United Church of Canada, think my congregation, my presbytery, or the whole national thing, whatever is on your mind these days, the United Church is like a pickup truck. It's a great pickup truck, one of those you want to keep forever. Nothing flashy, just reliable and comfortable. Great for hauling stuff. Great for sitting on the tailgate sharing a bottle of grape juice. Great for driving along together, sometimes talking and sometimes just sitting together quietly. That sort of thing. We've had this truck for a long time and it served us very well. But these days, the truck is showing its age. Rust spots keep growing. The engine starts up slower, and some days you wonder if it will turn over at all. But every time it does, but for how long, eh? So imagine a bunch of us, think of the folks, the congregation, your fellow presbyters, or all of us in the United Church, whatever works for you. The bunch of us are driving along in the truck. Some are crammed in the cab, some are right in the back, and of course, being the United Church, we make sure everyone gets a turn signal everywhere. You just pause, back and forth we go. We're trying to figure out what to do with this truck. You see, we can't actually get a brand new one. Can't start from scratch. Somehow we have got to take this old truck and turn it into something new we can drive along for the next part of the road. Oh, the road. It's changing. As we're bouncing along this road, we've seen signs lately that the road ahead is going to be quite different. Problem is, we don't know what it will look like, just somehow different. So not only are we trying to turn our old truck into something new, we're not even sure what this new thing really needs to be. What sort of vehicle are we going to need for the road ahead? Another pickup? Just a new model? Maybe an SUV? A hybrid? A smart car? Some are hoping for a Ferrari. I'm not so sure. Or maybe we'll need a sailboat. We just don't know. Now lots of folks, they have ideas, and some are really sure about what we need. But those confident ones among us, they actually can't agree with each other. And the rest of us, we're just confused. Fact is, no one knows. So we're bumping along this road in our pickup. We know it has to change, but into what? We're starting to work on it. But whatever we do now has to keep the options open for the future. Some of the changes we make now will prove to be a waste of time. Others will be great ideas, but just not quite suited for the road we discover. And we hope some of what we do right now will be exactly what is needed for the road ahead, but we don't know which is which. Not right now. Oh, and one more thing. We're trying to do this while the truck is speeding along the road. We can't pull over and put it up on logs while this work is being done. We've got to keep the truck moving all the while, hanging off the sides, cutting, welding, and so on, with little idea of what we're actually trying to build. So, if this is in some ways a picture of our beloved United Church and what we're going through, then let's not be surprised when it's hard, when it's really, really hard. And let's not feel like failures when it doesn't work out quite the way we hoped. And let's not kill each other. And most important, let's pray that this will drive us deeper into the light and into the arms of God. Because our truck is God's truck, right? And the road is God's. So is the road ahead. And we belong to God, too.